I wanted to make a brief comment on the recent conviction of somebody called Count Dankula for apparently making a video about a dog. And I want to treat this as a kind of open letter to people who have a much wider reach than I do. Sargon of Akkad, teal deer, these kinds of people. My caution to you is this. If you use this opportunity to talk about political correctness and the left and social justice warriors and the like, I think you will end up talking about the effects of the problem, not the cause. And I think an important opportunity will be lost. In addition to those things that you may denounce, I urge you to talk about serious, radical reform within your own government, because to me, this conviction highlights a very serious deficiency in the constraints upon your lawmakers. It seems to me that this goes far beyond the issue of political correctness and social justice. This failure goes much deeper than that. As I understand it, Mr. Dankula was convicted under the Communications Act of 2003, an act that contains provisions that seem to me to be a clear violation of free speech and free expression. But in realizing this, it became clear to me that no right as such seems to exist in the UK, or at the very best, it clearly isn't codified strongly and specifically enough in your Constitution or Bill of Rights. It seems to me that in saying that Count Dankula shouldn't have been prosecuted under the law, you're saying that the courts should have acted as though he had freedom of speech. And I ask you, what good does it do to demand that courts act as though you have freedom of speech and not also demand that you actually have it? I think you need to be very careful about what you're asking for, because if you're going after SJWs and progressives and leftists and feminists and this particular judge and telling them that they're not respecting freedom of speech, then you aren't actually asking for freedom of speech from Parliament or the British government or anything like that. You're asking individual people and individual judges to treat you as though you had freedom of speech. That judge could prosecute Count Dankula under the 2003 Communications Act. You're just saying that he shouldn't have, because instead he should have afforded him freedom of speech or considered it when making his ruling. You're asking them individually or as a group to recognize free speech and to value it. This is not good enough. You're going to the wrong people with this grievance. You need to go to the British government, whose job it is to recognize and secure your rights. It isn't enough to say that he shouldn't have been prosecuted under the law. In fact, there should have been no law by which he could have been prosecuted. Parliament ought not to have been legally allowed to pass the act as written. This can only be done through major, radical reform. This is the war that you're fighting. These little battles will go on ad infinitum until this deficiency is addressed. I say, call for reform. If you'll forgive me this observation, it's not enough to debunk SJWs and YouTubers and point out where the legal system punishes free speech. It's going to take something like this. Abolition of the monarchy. Establishment of a Bill of Rights that constrains Parliament and obliges them to recognize and secure the rights of British citizens. A system of judicial review so that if a law is passed that might violate the rights of a citizen, that citizen can go to a court and get an injunction and begin the process of judicial review and redress rapidly. It's going to take a reconstitution of the very purpose of Parliament, that is to say, the recognition that the job of Parliament is to affirm and secure the rights of British citizens, and that free speech and free expression is self-evidently one of those rights. Why? Because free speech and free expression are necessary and individual conditions for the good life and the good society. That is the kind of thing that it's going to take. And I'm afraid you've got all your work ahead of you. But I think that the UK is emotionally and politically poised for this. The Brexit referendum, for better or for worse, has left the citizens of the UK with a feeling of self-determination, a feeling that they can have a say in their own affairs. I think that this recently kindled spirit of self-determination would be very well served in calling for these kinds of reforms. Let us shift the conversation, or at least include in it a demand for free speech and free expression to be once and for all codified in law, and that it act as a constraint upon Parliament, and for Parliament to recognize that its job is to affirm and secure the rights of the people of the United Kingdom. You want free speech? Go and win it. Go all the way. Take it to Parliament. Take it to the Prime Minister. Take it to the very machinery of government itself. Make your slogan, "Secure Our Rights." Make your banner, "People's Bill of Rights." Make your cause a cause of justice and not merely a refutation of injustice. The problems are solvable. Thank you, and Godspeed.